welcome you all, and I'm very happy that this 9th SOLAS Open Science Conference is happening at Goa, first time in India. We are very much thankful to all the committee members of SOLAS providing this opportunity to India and particularly the National Institute of Oceanography, so one of the premier institutions of oceanography in India. Having this meeting now in India or anywhere, I think this is very much relevant because this SOLAS, when you are referring to SOLAS is nothing but surface ocean lower atmosphere studies. So anything dealing with surface ocean and lower atmosphere and their interaction is SOLAS is dealing with that. And in today's perspective, even the climate change everybody is aware of, these studies have become very, very relevant. And this meeting, when it is happening in Goa, people from all over the world, at least from 20 countries, have assembled here from both the hemisphere. People from Australia to America to everywhere, they have assembled here to discuss about this interaction and all the processes and how it is impacting, how the climate and this climate change impacting this processes like biogeochemistry and all those things happening in ocean, and how these in turn biogeochemistry is impacting the atmosphere. So means this interrelated processes one need to understand very well, and particularly when the climate is changing now, how it will be further changing, how it will be enhancing the activity. All these things are being developed or being discussed, and plan for the future is being envisaged. So this is very, very important from this meeting, which will be dealing with all these things. So as you are aware, now means there is no doubt that climate change is not happening. You have seen today we are sitting in Goa, and Goa November temperature is one of the highest. You have seen that. Actually, now monsoon was extended. That also you have seen that the rainfall, huge rainfall was there during this monsoon. All our Western India was getting huge rainfall. Rajasthan, the desert was getting flooded. How Kerala Wayanad landslide has happened. So means enormous. You see all over globe the cyclones, number of cyclones, intensity is increasing. So climate change impact has started seeing, and now the 1.5 degree temperature which people have put the increase in temperature due to climate change. It's going to happen very soon. It's changing very rapidly. Now the role of these SOLAS scientists become very, very important, because what all it is impacting, and then how to mitigate that. That is much more relevant question. So these things will be discussed in the meeting, and more I think we will, as you go, we will be discussing in this press conference. So thank you very much for coming, and we will take up the question after the address of our two co-chairs, and these are the people right now taking lead of the SOLAS program, so they will be talking about the SOLAS now.
Yeah, so thank you. I guess I go, then you go. Okay. So we've already heard from Dr. Kumar and Professor Singh the basics of SOLAS, and I guess what I would like to add on to that is that we're now celebrating a 20th anniversary for our science plan, and almost a 25-year anniversary of the whole organization. And we really have a global reach, as was mentioned already. And I think it's important to state that while we're meeting here, that our Indian community within SOLAS is very, very active. And this is one of the reasons why we show up here. And we think that this focus on the Indian Ocean is a very important one. And I think this will also be highlighted at the end of the conference. So it's a good place here to highlight that the role of the Indian Ocean within this climate system, and also within the biogeochemical feedbacks and the biogeochemical cycles, and within the SOLAS community is a very important one. So we're very grateful and happy to be here today. And we will be looking at this meeting into the future. So as mentioned, we have to look at climate change and how this affects biogeochemical cycles, and what the SOLAS community thinks is important to continue to study, and how we can sort of position ourselves in a solution mitigation space, which is also a very tricky conversation. So we will be having that conversation during this meeting and in subsequent meetings. So I think this is all I want to say.
I like going last because I have nothing left to say.
But you will find something to
say.
say.
I will find something to say. I would also like to express our thanks for the host, because this has been a fantastic meeting. We're 2 days, and we have 2 more to go, and so we've very much enjoyed the hospitality and the interaction with the Indian community. Looking at SOLAS, and I have been associated pretty much my entire career, the thing that I find really interesting at this particular point in time is that SOLAS has 20th year, the science plan, 25 years of SOLAS science. We have positioned ourselves at that interface between ocean and atmosphere, the most important interface when it comes to climate interactions. Time scales of the ocean don't match time scales of the atmosphere. It's a very difficult scientific problem to match these things together, and we recognized that problem 25 years ago, and we have been working on that problem for 25 years, and now the community knows so much more about how the interface works that we are in a perfect position to contribute to understanding future climate scenarios, how these interactions will go forward in the future, because we've been studying them for 25 years in the past. So this is an important concept, and our community, the SOLAS community, is the perfect international group to understand that conversation and push it forward. As Krista said, we're working on our next science plan. At this meeting, we're talking about the next science plan, and one of the things that has been elevated into our next science plan is science for solutions, and that is addressed at climate, but it's also addressed at the green economy, alternative energy. Wind for windmills is in the SOLAS domain. Okay, and so we're trying to move our discovery science to inform solution science, and the other part of our new science plan will be capacity building. We've been doing this our whole existence, but we're kind of elevating the future generation of scientists to take a larger role in our science plan, because as you might have noticed, I'm old, and I'm older than Krista. and so, it's training the next generation to understand the discussion and the collaborations that happen between atmospheric science and ocean science. It's a difficult conversation, and we've been training students to do that, and that is becoming a larger part of our next science plan to focus on capacity building for the next generation. And I think that that's one of the wonderful things about these open science conferences is when you look at the audience, there are so many smart, young, early career scientists in the audience, and it just makes my heart feel good. So I think our future is bright with this particular community. I think we are at a nexus in the climate change discussion where we can contribute very strongly to that, to the next generation and the next thing that happens, whatever that is.
Can I just add one thing?
No.
So, please. So, speaking of this wonderful young people in the audience, having the conference here really brings the Indian young scientists here to this conference, and there's so many, and it's really a great thing to engage with a whole group of people that don't normally get to come and sit in all the meetings everywhere. So, this is a wonderful opportunity as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, all of you. And so, as they mentioned, it's a global challenge, and global community is facing this challenge, and they are here to solve this problem. So, probably this discussion, this meeting will bring a lot of things in the domain of public, in the public domain, and then maybe we will come up with some solutions. So, I think now we can start question and answers.
So, just to start, you have then you know who you are talking to.
Yeah.
They have idea? Yeah, okay, mention.
Okay. So this is the 9th edition. Every after 2 years it happens. So this year, what's the new thing?
This year, what is the new thing in the science conference? Okay, so I would say that the SOLAS 3.0 is the main new thing in the science conference.
That's our next science plan,
Yeah.
3.0.
Yeah.
That's the third one. Very creative, I'm sure.
So when this program started, it was science plan was written. So next, what we are going to do next 20 years? that is over now. Now, you know that problem is still there, so we have understood partly. So now we are writing what will be done next 20 years. So this is the meeting where it will be decided what way our SOLAS will be moving, and whole science plan will be written for which international SOLAS people will be followed.
Right. And as far as the next thing too, I mean, scientifically, we're learning that during this meeting. We have invited the very best scientists from around the world to give talks, and they are informing the whole community for the discussion. The way that these science meetings work is very interesting, because we need the discussion, we need the collaboration, and then after that we go away and find out what the new things are. And so our meetings are in the morning. We have talks where everyone listens and learns, and then the afternoon is all discussion groups and poster sessions where everyone talks around their science. And so really half of this meeting is trying to answer the question you just asked. What is the next thing? And we're going to get that from the young people who are here, from people all over the world come here, and they discuss what they view as the next thing. And we are watching and taking notes, and we will meet after this meeting with the Scientific Steering Committee and try to capture what we hear at this meeting. So your question is being answered in this conference.
Right. So scientific community is at one level, at one side. The administration, state administration, or any country's administration is at different level. You discover something, you suggest something, how it is accepted by the governance part, the government part.
You want to go first?
No, you can.
We just had a talk this morning on a suggestion to embed our science into a framework that was more accessible to global change. And I won't say even global climate change, just change in the way that we understand the Earth. Tipping points, times when you have, we know that there are events in the Indian Ocean and everywhere around the world where you have anoxia, you have the loss of oxygen, and we understand the processes a bit, and that is not good for any animal that breathes oxygen. They tend to die. So those types of problems, if it becomes, it's somewhat a natural phenomenon, but warming and changes that are happening make that process more intense. And the question is, how do you capture that as only one part? How do we capture that and inform governments and policymakers to know that they need to take action? When is it bad and when is it not bad? And those kind of things are being discussed. We had a talk just this morning about a framework to frame our science into this policy space, which I gotta say, I'm a scientist, and talking about policy, you probably should.
What were your experience for last 20 years?
So I
Oh, for the last 20
I
years,
can
okay,
answer
go.
that. Okay, so I think there are three main avenues that SOLAS as an organization uses to enter the policy domain. So one is just through the individual scientists and in their communities. So some of the people are quite good at being advocates for their science to policy. So this is just on an individual level. It may get communicated around SOLAS, but this is individual scientists. The third one is that SOLAS, in the last 10 years, in the last science plan, adopted something called Science and Society. And before that, in the first 10-year plan, they had some climate intervention, so actions. And so within the SOLAS community's infrastructure, there have been the addition of more sort of law or governance scientists, or so economists, these different types of science, more social or humanities, in order to help us, bridge this divide between whatever society is, whether it be policy or individual stakeholders or whatever, communities and us, right? So there's that second avenue. And then the third avenue is when SOLAS as a community puts out statements. So in the past, they put out a statement about climate intervention. That's the main one that has been put out. We're now talking, so we still have to talk, and it's not clear yet, but there's some discussion about plastics and the upcoming plastics treaty. And these might be avenues that SOLAS as an organization wants to put out statements regarding. So this is the third the third way.
But as a international group, we have no capacity to influence Indian policy.
For
and I think
example.
that, for example,
Yeah.
or American policy or any of
Yeah.
it, because we have we are scientists first, and we can understand the processes and possible impacts. But it's up to local and regional and national communities to forward the message into some action.
Yeah, just I would like to add, like first, when we are talking, particularly suppose Indian government, so our Indian scientists working in SOLAS, they are very much related to the line ministries. Like our secretary is also a scientist, so we have continuous dialogue with them on any finding, new finding, we are discussing with them, and he is part of the policy making in the government. So everything is going to Prime Minister's office, all the big finding, and then they decide how to implement. And because of this new scientific discovery, many of the things, actually recent climate change phenomena or weather prediction and all those things are getting implemented. So it's a very two-way communication is always happening. That has been done. That has been done.
So
Yeah, one question. With respect to your last plan, 2.0, SOLAS 2.0, and the challenges that you had faced while coming up with that plan, what are the still pressing challenges now being taken into account while coming up with the 3.0?
In terms of science?
Yeah, in terms of
specifically?
science.
So I would say this deoxygenation is a very big topic that still comes up.
The thing about our science plans, and I helped write the very first one many years ago, is mostly in all science, it's a incremental understanding that you, and so every question that you ask doesn't exactly get answered before asking new questions. It's this why science is such a fun occupation for me, is that you never know the end. You always learn more, and then you can ask new questions, and you learn more and ask new questions. So I think that all of the items, I think there were 3 scientific foci for the first plan. It ended up 5 for the second plan, which is my point. It's everything. You have new questions as you answer the ones, and the ones that are put there to start with, they develop into more research on the same thing, because we now know we need to know more. It's a I'm not explaining it very well, but there's a transition, I think, for everything that SOLAS does. We learn new things, we ask new questions, we learn about those new questions, and we ask new questions. And in doing that, we develop a more comprehensive understanding of the air-sea interface. And the interaction between atmosphere and the ocean is what we're trying to understand. Will it be the same now that it's warmer, or will it change? And those fundamental scientific questions are trying to be asked. So I think that there are phenomena that, like deoxygenation and things like that are individual things, upwelling systems and fisheries and things like that that are part of the mosaic of what SOLAS is trying to do.
But I think we can give some examples of
Yeah,
things.
okay.
I mean, I think extreme events in the SOLAS, to me,
that's-
this is something that's entering the science plan that wasn't technically in there from the very beginning before. I think these things like deoxygenation, things like the changing carbon sink in the ocean, I think this is also a big topic. I think sea ice and everything that's happening with sea ice and also land ice, I think this is also, like at the coasts, this is also a big topic. And I would say that not from the discovery science perspective, but from this kind of solutions perspective, everything around marine carbon dioxide removal is on the table, because I think there are so many questions regarding marine carbon dioxide removal. So MCDR is what it's called. And it's a huge topic now. Everyone is getting in there. And I think there are some fundamental research questions to ask about that. So I think MCDR is a really big topic.
Just one example I will add. See, till now, people are very happy. At least some happiness was there that whatever CO2 we are producing, about 30-40% is going to the ocean. So at least in the atmosphere, it is going less. Now, when we are studying, now it's, as they have told, because of high temperature, we are losing oxygen. Now we lose CO2 also. Whatever has been absorbed till last 30, 40 or 50 years, that will be again going back to the atmosphere. So what will happen to that? So these type of questions, this type of understanding are getting developed. And as they have told, now how to remove the CO2? So there are, now people are talking about removal of CO2. So whether you can do seaweed culture production, or you can do removal by iron fertilization, or direct you can remove CO2 from the atmosphere, directly put in the basalt layer. So there are many ways, but not means we know the how to remove, but what will be the future consequences? Suppose you are removing CO2 and putting the deep ocean, what will happen to the deep ocean biology, ecology? So this type of question again we have to understand totally, then only something can be done. So this will be part of the new
How
science.
is it related to changing human behavior, pattern, habits?
How is what exactly related to that?
Our program or?
Our program.
No, rise in
Science.
temperature.
That everybody knows, because you see,
No, but
I'm just,
without taking that into consideration, you cannot. Just
no, everything is our luxury. Means everything is our, the CO2 pumping which is happening into atmosphere. From where the CO2 is coming? Because we need energy. Our dependence on energy has increased so much that without that we cannot do. And for that we are burning a lot of fossil fuel. The fossil fuel which was supposed to go to the sediment and go to the mantle of the earth, interior of the earth, we are taking immaturely, putting it back to the atmosphere. The CO2 has increased, greenhouse gases have increased. This is all because of, you say, industrialization. But whatever you say, but it is for our comfort, our comfort or our requirement. Our population is increasing. You need a lot of food. So how to do that? You need fertilizers. So all these things are adding CO2 to the atmosphere, and that is everything related to our human being disturbing the system.
means it is a man-made problem.
Of course it is man-made. This is no doubt about that.
But I think it's also interesting to make the point that it's not only the CO2, it's also gases like methane and N2O, and we study all of those things and how they interact between ocean and atmosphere. So,
People focus on CO2 a lot, and we study all the gases, oxygen, for instance, and methane and things like that. One thing I was just going to say is that as far as our organization, we don't fund science. So what we do is draw together the international community and identify these things that need further research, need further attention. Their human impact, just the basic science that is involved. And so we try to frame up the pressing questions, and then it's up to every one of the scientists to go to their national countries and get the money to go out and study these things. I mean, so bringing 20 nations together in India and in talking about the current state of the science gives them the ammunition to go back to their countries and write a research grant and get some money and study different things. So we try to leverage our expertise and our interactions and collaborations to send everyone back to because you have to have money to do science. Funding is a national activity. What we do is an international activity, and we just try to create the argument for all the international scientists to go back and say, oh, we were just in Goa, and they say that we learned that this was a very important question. Please give us some money and we will go to try to solve that. And if that happens all over the world, as Dr. Singh said, the ocean and the atmosphere are everywhere. It's not just one place, and it's all connected. So we need the global community to go back and try to answer some of these
Can you
questions.
share details on the program which will have special dedicated to early career scientists?
Early careers.
Early career scientists.
how early career scientists are
And
supported.
what SOLAS is doing for that, whatever program is associated with the early career.
Right, yeah, sure. So one of the earliest things that SOLAS has done is had a summer school. So the summer school started even before the first science plan. So the first summer school was in 2003. There have been, now I should know this number, I think something like 9 summer schools, sorry. I should know the number better than I do. And I think there have been over 500 students that have gone through these summer schools, and they serve master's level to early postdoc level, so in these summer schools. And basically, they teach sort of the basics of SOLAS science, so that all the people sitting in the audience come sort of to an even level. have biologists in the room with physicists, et cetera, et cetera. And then there is a series of hands-on training. So people get to go on a ship, they get to use a model, et cetera. So this is the basic level. But we have instituted some new things. So we have an early career committee now. So the early careers within the SOLAS organization internationally now sit on their own committee and make decisions and have leadership roles within the SOLAS infrastructure that are formalized. So I think this is a very big improvement.
Krista is very good to speak on this because
Absolutely.
she was introduced to SOLAS through a summer school.
Yeah, the very first
Summer school means for young people.
So I was a graduate of the first
Do
summer
we
school.
have such event during this SOLAS?
Not here, but here during this event we had the early career day. So we had one day where there were some trainings and some tours, and the early career scientists, they're not all students, they get to network with each other. So there was one day dedicated to that. And now during this conference, we had a discussion yesterday on kicking off a mentorship program within the SOLAS community. So this is not clear what this will be, but there is an interest from the mentors to the mentees on kicking off a SOLAS mentorship program.
And so the early career day happened one day before the official conference
Yeah.
started, and this is part of what SOLAS has been so very good at over the last 20 years, is creating friendships, collaborations.
Yeah.
People are very free because it's atmospheric science and ocean science. They're very free to ask questions and try to understand the other side, and that's been a hallmark of the SOLAS program for all the years that we've been in. And so having all the early careers take tours together and see things together, it's forming friendships and collaborations between countries. I mean, science is scientists. If the scientists are collaborating, the science becomes collaborative. So that's a very important thing that happens, especially at these ocean science, open science conferences, is the young people, the older. Dr. Peter Liss is a special guest at the conference. He has been doing this his entire career, and yet he still asks very cutting questions at the conference. So it's really interesting to see the early scientists interact with the older scientists. We're trying to formalize that in a mentorship thing where the early career scientists learn from the older people in the science. We're old enough to do that now. We used to be young. There was no older people. So yeah, it's a really interesting new development, and I think the early career group that we have is so dynamic and so smart.
They're so
And
great.
I'm intimidated by them.
One question. With respect to marine pollution and the regulations of MARPOL, how much does the International Maritime Organization follow the regulations laid by SOLAS?
I think we don't really make regulations. I think this is the
Studies.
Recommendations. It's nothing we really have much control over. As Dr. Singh said, I think that there are people who interface with the scientists, and they are policymakers and no policymakers, and that can resonate. As a scientist in general, it's often frustrating when you see a problem and you cannot get anyone to take action on it. So as an international group, we hope that we have a larger leverage than just an individual scientist saying, I think you should do this. So I think that, I don't know that we've authored much about marine policy or anything. We have a lawyer on our SSC we're talking about maritime policy. We've had sessions on marine pollution from shipping and how, because the ship's plumes put material into the air and then it falls into the ocean, and that can change toxicity or even can increase productivity. It depends on what is in the smoke and stuff. So we've addressed this over the years. We've had discussions and sent the community back with the information. So I think that's our role more than we can't make any policy ourselves, but we can hope that by informing the community and sending them back to their national wherever they came from, that would be I think that's all we can hope for. But I think as an international voice, we do have a larger voice than the frustration of a single scientist.
And actually, example of that is very successful success story I can tell you. You know, the 70th lead concentration in the ocean and atmosphere and everywhere, it has increased significantly. And actually it has gone up to that level in the waters and everywhere that people are correlating the crime in the country, that crime has increased because of lead, because it is neurotoxic. And that because of scientists, they found out that concentration is high, and from here it is coming. So if in the beginning people are not able to believe, but it was coming from leaded gasoline, and entire world now has banned the leaded gasoline, and concentration has gone to the background level. So this type of study really has huge impact, and people listen to that. So it means similarly now, like we are talking coal burning. So coal burning is putting a lot of trace metals and many toxic elements. So again, people from SOLAS or any other people are working on that. And once everything is proven that beyond doubt, government takes care.
So how will Goan local community will benefit from this SOLAS in terms of awareness, education, or future research partnerships?
I mean, from the NIO perspective, I think many of the young scientists have been participating. I think they are taking advantage of having a group of international scientists come here. I mean, I've met personally many of them, and I think this is one very intense way that the population in Goa will.
Oh yeah, it definitely. I mean, the young Indian scientists have an opportunity to come here because this conference has been held all over the world, and I did not make it to the last one because it was in South Africa, and there's no way I could get to South Africa. So having it in India is of a direct benefit to Indian scientists that can more easily attend, and at that point they can talk to one another, they can talk to scientists from around the world. So I think that what you generate is an excitement, is a scientific buzz, scientific excitement that translates into work. Scientists are very strange people in that if we can do our science and be left alone, we're generally happy. That's kind of the way scientists think about things. And so creating that excitement and the collaborations, and when you find someone else that cares about the same thing you care about, then it creates an energy that creates productivity. And I think that it's hard to put a number on that. It's hard to put an exact measure of that, but it's absolutely real. It's absolutely real.
But I also think that it's also not only a cost thing. I mean, you didn't say this, but I was just thinking when you were talking. It's also that a conference like this offers many opportunities to be in a social setting. So you can always write an email to someone to ask them a question, but this kind of cold emailing, this is something that maybe many young scientists want to do, for example. But if they're at the icebreaker and they're at the poster session and people are talking, then it's a very nice opportunity for, warming up. And I think that local scientists will receive this opportunity.
And two-way conversations, as you were saying, are far better to ask questions and learn than an email or a Zoom call. I love Zoom and I hate Zoom.
Yeah, I guess that's everyone.
I think everyone in the room can agree.
So do we expect any MOUs to be signed under this conference?
Memorandums of understanding. So this I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I'm not sure. Memorandums of understanding. I'm not sure if anyone is working on that.
See, it is not planned. But during discussion, we realize that some very important thing is there, and we should work. Means whether it is MOU or not, we are working together. Entire globe is working together. Means particularly when we have climate change and ocean interaction and all those things. But if we realize that yes, we should have, or inchute to inchute we should have, I think that will also be the outcome of this conference. But right now it is not planned.
So and no one is against that. And I don't know what individuals have planned, right? So we don't know everything that everyone is doing.
We bring the crowd together and see what happens.
But it could happen.
And it's always been good in the past. I'm optimistic about this stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.